Hello, it's Book Quote Wednesday and the word is yellow, and today I am reading from my alternate history novel, The New World Order. The English Civil War is at its height. King Charles is cornered in Oxford, Cromwell is closing in, but another force is at work in the land, a technologically superior people, the Holocaust, who aren't interested in the causes or outcomes of the Civil War. They just want England for themselves. And they've got to Oxford first. The tent was standard military issue, but the Holocaust officers in it had pushed the boat out to be formal. There were 5 of them, clad in jackets and leggings of bright snowy white and rich blood red, sweeping fur-lined cloaks, knee-length boots gleaming black, and silver-plated helmets that crested over their faces and swept down to the napes of their necks. As her party approached, Conolly glanced up towards the city. A curious feature was a row of short-range artillery guns mounted on a mound between the external defences and the city, but aimed back at Oxford. She turned her attention back to the tent. The officers sat around the table, apparently enjoying a hearty breakfast. As the riders came near, 4 of the Holocaust pushed their chairs back and stood respectfully. Warily, Conolly took them in. 3 had yellow sashes around their waists. They would be the infantry. 1 had a blue sash, Skymite, collects Army of the Air. 1 of the infantrymen had an ornate silver bracelet around his upper arm, which denoted a noble, a scion of a high family. He looked the youngest, so while he was a social superior here, he had to do as he was told by his military elders and betters. She was surprised that they had eschewed the traditional face paint, and a little disappointed. She knew Cromwell's opinion of men with painted faces. This whole thing was obviously designed to impress him, and the impression could have been ruined by one small Galecki military tradition. But they were ahead of her. The men held their hands up to their chests, right hand palm outwards and facing towards the new arrivals, left hand clenched. "They are saluting you, General," Conolly murmured. "Indeed, and why doesn't he salute?" Cromwell indicated the 5th Holocaust, the man who still sat at the end of the table, even more resplendent than the others. Large, heavy epaulets weighed down each shoulder, and his helmet was gold-plated, with an inlaid silver hawk over the brow. That was when Conolly really began to despair. The Mite's Hawk Battalion had a reputation all of its own. "Because he is the general in charge of this army," Conolly said. She thought of adding, "your equal," but chose not to. Cromwell absorbed the information of that comment and rode a few more paces, to come to a halt 20 feet from the tent. He returned the salute abruptly, touching his hand to his helmet, but nothing more. "General Cromwell!" The Holocaust general finally rose from his chair and came round the table. He bowed and spoke in English. "It's a pleasure to see you again. And Conolly, I trust I find you in good health. Will you join me for breakfast?" Conolly nearly fell out of her saddle. There was no mistaking that not quite buried rural burr, and she just plain recognised him. The face, the scent. It was the same man, the ex-soldier, the inexplicably Christian John Donder, though not apparently as much of an ex-soldier as Conolly had been led to believe. No, she contradicted herself, as she had let herself believe. She resolved there and then never to trust anything about this Galecki creature that she couldn't personally verify ever again. "Who are you, sir, and why do you block our way into Oxford?" Cromwell demanded. "The way into Oxford is open, General. You can pass at any time. As for who I am," though he still looked at Cromwell, Conolly knew it was she who was being addressed. "Although I previously introduced myself by my Christian name of John Donder among the Holocaust, I am General Dondo." Conolly sucked in through her teeth. "With the privilege of serving my lord the Dominel of Golek." He indicated the 2 elder men with the yellow sashes. "May I present the Colonel Craig-Deb, commander of the Hawk Battalion, and the Centurion Ensel," the blue sash, "Centurion Rawdley, and finally the young noble, and my aide, the Decurion Porday." Cromwell nodded abruptly. From the innocently blank gazes and the way the men only straightened up at the sound of their names, Conolly guessed that none of the others spoke English. "You are a general, sir?" Cromwell said. "You command this army?" "This?" Dondo looked around him. Oh, this is just a fraction. I have 200 men here in Oxford, another 5,000 at my camp near Uffington, and that is still the smallest, tiniest splinter of what is to come to this island. The smile faded. I am sorry to take these extreme steps, General, but I need you to take me seriously. Cromwell looked at him without blinking. Conolly knew him well enough to know that wheels within wheels within wheels were turning in his mind. You will excuse me, Cromwell said, and turned to huddle with his officers. Conolly was drawn by default into the conversation. Where is Uffington? Cromwell hissed. One of the men protested. It's impossible, General. You couldn't have 5,000 men there without our noticing. I asked where it is, Captain. I did not ask your opinion. The captain flushed. It's 20, perhaps 30 miles from here, sir, past Wantage. But it's on no major road. Doesn't it have a white horse? The colonel said. Yes, sir, a white horse carved into the hill and a deserted hill fort, and that's Uffington. But, General, it has no military value, no strategic worth, and it's surrounded by our enemies. We would have noticed the arrival of 5,000 men. Thank you, gentlemen. Cromwell turned back to Dondo. I thank you for your kind invitation to breakfast, General, but I must decline. We are here to arrest the king. After that, we will certainly describe the situation you have described. Ah, the king is no longer here. Conolly braced himself for a furious bellow, but Cromwell was surprisingly tranquil, perhaps having already prepared himself for the news. I see, he said. His voice was calm and level as he touched his helmet again. Then you have declared yourself for the king, General, whoever you are. That is your choice. We have nothing more to say to each other, except that if you are here to invade this country, you will not find the army and the people of England unprepared. Good day. I did not say where the king is. Dondo raised his voice for the first time, interrupting Cromwell in mid-turnabout. Cromwell glanced back over his shoulder. If you have arrested him for me, I am forever grateful. If you have helped him escape, you are my enemy. Which is it, sir? King Charles and his sons are at my camp, Dondo said. I have no quarrel with his sons. Are you holding him for me there, or are your 5,000 soldiers protecting him? They are doing neither. I came here to receive his surrender. He could hardly do that without first assessing my strength, and I therefore invited him into my camp under flag of truce. And now, General Cromwell, I extend the same invitation to you, unless you would like to surrender now. Surrender? Cromwell wheeled his horse back round to face Dondo, and for the first time ever, Conolly actually saw him speechless. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Eventually he was able to say, Surrender! His voice trembled, caught somewhere between laughter, anger, and sheer amazement. I concede he seemed to have taken Oxford in a remarkably short time, but I assure you, sir, it will take more than an army of 5,000 men in smart uniform to defeat an army of God's own people. Blessed are the peacemakers, said Dondo, for they shall be called sons of God. Think not that I came to send peace on the earth, Cromwell replied. I came not to send peace, but a sword. I warn you, sir, do not try to bandy sacred quotes with me, and do not meddle in matters you don't understand. Dondo shook his head, slowly, sadly. And I warn you, sir, do not ignore matters that you do not understand. Let me give you the same lessons I gave to the king. He turned to the young decurion, Pordet, and said one word. Vevemos. Go. Pordet stood to attention, saluted, then turned and ran back towards Oxford. He hurried through the defence lines and up to the mound whereon the row of artillery was ranged. He filled his lungs and bellowed orders in the one tongue. What did he say? Cromwell said to Conolly. He told the gun crews to man their weapons, she said. Cromwell frowned at the sudden activity around the guns. They were still aimed at Oxford, and their muzzles were sinking lower and lower until they pointed almost directly ahead. It suddenly dawned on Conolly that none of the lines directly between the guns and Oxford were actually manned. When he says "Kes," Conolly said urgently, cover your ears. What does that mean? Said Cromwell. Give fire. Kes! The guns roared, a ripple of eardrum-pounding thunder that echoed round and round the Thames Valley. And the south wall of Oxford erupted. It simply disappeared behind a cloud of shattered stone and dust. The soldiers' horses were battle-hardened and barely flinched. Conolly's nag screamed and reared, and with a feeling of inevitable horror she felt herself slithering off the infernal beast's back. She landed on her rump and ducked aside as the animal fled. She pulled herself to her feet in time to hear the order to fire repeated. She saw Cromwell's consuming gaze fixed upon the gunners. With modern guns, there was none of the time-wasting business of swabbing the muzzle, loading and tamping. They simply pulled a lever, the spent cartridge fell out, and a new one was slotted in. The same principle as the rifles, only faster, deadlier. Cromwell wanted them for himself. The guns fired again, and this time Oxford's wall was brought down almost to the ground. One last time, and there was no longer a southern wall. The dust cleared, and Cromwell could see all the way into the centre of the city. It had taken less than a minute to do what a conventional barrage could have taken hours to accomplish. The last echo died away, leaving only a faint drone in Cromwell's ears. She shook her head to stop the ringing. "You could have managed the same effect with a few charges," she said in the one tongue. "True, but this way got their attention. You should have seen the king's face after I did this to the north wall." Dondo turned to Cromwell and changed to English. "General, please listen to me. I am not here by my own choice, but by the orders of my lord, the Dominel, ruler of Golec. The Dominel has chosen this land for his own people, and I have been charged with taking it. My lord doesn't know about you or your king, and he doesn't care. He has told his people they can come, and come they will. They'll come and keep coming, and you will never stop them. They have weapons like the ones you have seen. You have your muskets and your gunpowder and your cannon. And they'll keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, and then they'll keep coming and keep coming and come some more, until the people of this island are extinct or driven into the sea." The only sign of Cromwell's anger was that his eyes narrowed, but to Cromwell, who had had some experience of his temper, he was clearly livid. What was important was that he was taking Dondo seriously, and even Dondo could see it. "You are talking about war," he said. Dondo shook his head angrily. "No! A war must be joined. It must be declared. My lord doesn't care enough about you to do that. But if you surrender now, your losses will be fewer than if you resist us." "We have Mistress Connolly's guns." Cromwell sounded a fraction less certain than before. "The Tower of London is already mine. It fell to me the day before yesterday." Connolly drew in her breath with a hiss. She had been the one to tell Dondo where the tower was. Had her family, her friends, already been slaughtered by Galecki soldiers? No, it couldn't be. "The tower fell to you?" Cromwell gave a shout of incredulous laughter. "You are truly mad, sir. Even if you could get an army to London unopposed and unnoticed, you obviously don't know that the tower is a solid, well-defended fortress. You would have to get your artillery within its range to destroy it, General, and it would cost you dear." Dondo gave a very sad smile. "What are its air defences?" "Its air defences?" Cromwell looked as if he must have misheard. "They don't exist." Connolly answered the question for him, her voice level, only trembling slightly with her gaze boring into Dondo. "General Cromwell, this man could reduce the tower to rubble in minutes. Perhaps he already has." Dondo shook his head again. "They were ordered to surrender, and they saw sense," he said. "As a gesture of goodwill, General, I then returned control of the tower to your Parliament. The Holocaust foundry and its staff I kept for myself, intact." "Reduce it to rubble?" Cromwell demanded. "How? Mistress Connolly, how?" She pricked up her ears. The drone was louder now, and suddenly she knew what it was. It was not the after effects from an artillery barrage at all. She turned and pointed south, down the valley, and up. "Like that," she said. There were shouts of amazement from Cromwell's two colleagues. The general himself turned his horse round, cupped his hands over his eyes, and gazed up into the clear blue sky. 800 feet long, 100 feet wide, the airship coasted towards the city. The Golden Hawk insignia on its prow gleamed back at them, and it made the inexorable, deadly progress of a shark. Connolly had a sudden vision of the Galecki advance into England. It would be like this. The noise of the engines deepened into a rib-trembling rumble as the airship slid through the sky above them. It took a long time to pass over completely. 6 engine nacelles jutted out of the hull at bow, midpoint, and stern. It had 2 gondolas, one at the prow and one at midships, and they were connected by a gallery. Connolly could clearly see the faces of some of the Skymite crew peering down. One of them waved. Then the airship was past, coming into land in the meadows to the east of Oxford. "Dear God," Cromwell whispered. His face was completely pale, drained of colour. "My ship, the Golden Hawk," Dondo said. "General," said Connolly, "those things can carry bombs and guns and troops. That is how you reach London." She glared bitterly at Dondo. You should know that this man led the army that overran my own country in his Hawk Battalion. They were yours, weren't they, Dondo? Everyone knows the Conqueror founded them. Indeed, Dondo said. I trained Colonel Craigdead myself. The Hawks were at the forefront of every assault, Connolly said, her voice suddenly flat and lifeless. I beg you, General, listen to this man. What he says is the truth. It was the first time Connolly had known Cromwell falter. I have no authority to negotiate, sir. Can you give me written details I can show to Parliament? Not terms, but a description of the situation? If you can lend me a scribe, I will be happy to oblige, Dondo said. I will also be happy to send a ship to London to pick up whichever representatives Parliament cares to send. If you like, General, I will take you to my camp first to view the situation with your own eyes. I give you my word you will be accorded the due courtesies to a man in your position, and you will be free to come and go as you please. Cromwell nodded curtly, then pulled his horse around. For the time being, I will rejoin my men, and then with your permission, we will take Oxford. After that, I will consider your offer. Mistress Connolly, are you still with us? Connolly gazed with loathing at Dondo. He returned the look with a regretful smile. I wouldn't join this man to save my life, General. Very well, wait here, we'll pick you up on the way back. Cromwell and his colleagues rode off without a backwards glance. Remember, you can buy my books at www.benjeeps.com. See you next time.